Have you ever wondered why some companies just seem to consistently get it right with innovation, while others, well, they just get left in the dust? It's not luck, I can tell you that. It's all about strategy. Today, we're going to open up the Innovator's Toolkit and look at 3 key frameworks that'll help you see what's coming, cut through all the noise, and make the kind of smart bets that create market leaders. Look, in the world of technology, things move so fast and the stakes are incredibly high. Every single decision you make really counts. You're always at this crossroads, right? And the choice is basically between becoming a market leader or heading for the exit. One wrong move can literally take you out of the game, but the right one, that can define your entire future. So yeah, the pressure is definitely on. So to make those right choices, you first have to know what kind of problem you're even trying to solve. On the one hand, you've got what's called autonomous innovation. Think about inventing a better pen. Really, you only need to convince one person, the one who's going to write with it. Pretty straightforward. But then you have systemic innovation, and that is a whole different beast. Think about electric cars. You can't just sell a car. You have to convince an entire ecosystem to come along with you. You need charging stations, mechanics who know how to fix them, public buy-in, the whole shebang. It's about changing the system itself. Okay, so how do you figure out where you are on this journey? How do you know if a technology is just getting started or if it's about to peak? That brings us to our very first tool, the S-curve. I want you to think of this as your strategic map for the entire life cycle of any given technology. The S-curve is one of those ideas that's super simple, but also incredibly powerful once you get it. All it does is visually track how a technology gets better and better over time. And what's the fuel for that improvement? Well, it's all the blood, sweat, and tears, all the money and brain power poured into research and development. And this is basically what that map looks like. You know, almost every technology follows the same predictable S shape. It kicks off with a really slow start, where every little bit of progress is a huge struggle. Then, suddenly, it hits this sweet spot and just takes off with a period of super rapid improvement. And finally, as it starts to get close to its natural limits, that progress slows down and eventually levels off into a plateau. We can actually break this journey down into 4 really clear phases. First, you've got the embryonic stage, where the idea is just a baby, really fragile. Then comes growth. That's the exciting part, the rocket ship phase. After that, it settles into maturity, where the tech is pretty much standard, but the big innovations are over. And finally, you hit decline, as something newer and better starts to take its place. And what's crucial is that your strategy has to be totally different for each of these phases. All right, so we've got our map, but we also need a weather forecast because, let's be real, the journey of innovation is never a smooth, sunny day. It's usually full of storms of irrational hype and, honestly, some pretty crushing disappointment. And that is where our second tool comes into play, the Gartner hype cycle. This thing is an amazing way to make sense of that emotional roller coaster that always comes with new technologies. It helps you separate all the marketing buzz and the media noise from what's actually going on with the tech's real-world development. And yup, it really is a roller coaster. Here's how it goes. A new technology gets announced, and the hype shoots it way up to what's called the peak of inflated expectations. But then, reality sets in, and it comes crashing down into the trough of disillusionment. It's only after that crash that the real work begins, and the technology can start the slow, steady climb up the slope of enlightenment until, finally, it reaches the plateau of productivity. That's where it actually starts creating real, stable value. Now, this is the really cool part. Watch what happens when we put our weather forecast right on top of our map. That entire wild ride of the hype cycle, the massive peak, the devastating crash, it almost always happens right at the very beginning of the S-curve, during that fragile embryonic stage. This is such a critical insight. It means the biggest buzz, the loudest noise, it all happens when a technology is at its absolute weakest and most unproven. Okay, so we have a map of the terrain, we have a forecast for the journey. Now we need our third and final tool, the action plan. This is basically your playbook. It's what tells you where you should invest your time and money and when to get the biggest bang for your buck. And this is that playbook. It's a really clever framework for sorting out all your different innovation projects. It's built on 2 really simple questions. First, how much does this change the product we sell? And second, how much does this change the way we actually make it? Just by plotting your projects on this grid, you get this crystal clear picture of what your innovation portfolio really looks like. So down here in the bottom left corner, you've got your derivative projects. These are your bread and butter, right? The small incremental improvements. We're talking about things like new packaging for a product or a small tweak to your manufacturing line that saves a little money. They're low risk, they don't eat up a ton of resources, and you absolutely need them to stay competitive day in and day out. Now, moving toward the middle, you find your platform projects. These are much bigger moves. With these, you're not just improving one product, you're building a whole foundation for a family of future products. The auto industry does this all the time. They'll design one single car chassis and then use it to build a sedan, an SUV, and maybe even a small truck. It's a super strategic move that gives you tons of flexibility down the road. And then, way up in the top right, you have the big ones, the innovative projects. These are the game changers, the big risky bets. We're talking about creating brand new technologies, opening up entirely new markets, the kind of stuff that could completely redefine your company. Of course, they are super high risk and they cost a lot, but the potential reward, it's massive. So this is the moment where it all clicks into place. You see, these three tools aren't just separate ideas you use now and then. The real magic happens when you combine them. When you use the S-curve map, the hype cycle forecast, and your project portfolio all together to build one single powerful strategy. And that leads us to this really fundamental truth right here. A company's long-term growth, its survival even, it doesn't come from one single eureka moment or one lucky project. Nope. It's built by carefully managing a balanced portfolio of projects. You need a healthy mix of those safe derivative improvements, those strategic platform plays, and those big, ambitious, innovative leaps. So let's wrap it all up. Your complete Innovator's Toolkit has three parts. You've got the S-curve, that's your map for understanding where a technology is in its life. You've got the hype cycle, that's your weather forecast to help you ignore all the noise. And you've got the project portfolio, that's your playbook for making smart bets. When you use them all together, you stop just reacting to the future and you actually start building it. And I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. Take a look at your own company, or even your whole industry through this lens. What does that project portfolio look like? Is it balanced? Or is everyone just playing it safe with tiny derivative projects, not thinking about the future? Or maybe it's the opposite, all crazy moonshots with no solid foundation to stand on. Where are the gaps? And more importantly, what does that tell you about what's coming next?